So now I want to talk about why I think a lot of people get the British wrong and just see us as this kind of weirdly patriotic people when I think we're more like a kind of victim of our own propaganda. I call it the ideal of Britishness. There's a phenomenon called the Disneyland effect. It dictates that the first time you experience something, it becomes a kind of formative benchmark experience of that thing. And against that benchmark, all subsequent experiences must compare. If that first experience, if it's not representative, say you win the lottery on the first time of playing, or you fall in love on your first ever date, you can very easily end up with a distorted idea of what's normal for that thing. An oft-cited Disneyland effect experience is that of safaris. And that's because for most of us, our first and so formative safari experience are these animal-themed rides in theme parks. You know, the ones where you sit on a bright blue plastic boat floating around a simulation African savanna, and for 3 intense minutes you're bombarded by exotic animatronic animals. Lions growl an inch from your face, galloping zebras run along beside you, a family of meerkats dances on the shell of a giant turtle as tribal music blares from speakers hidden in bushes, building up to a thrilling crescendo. Safaris, you think, as you exit via the gift shop. Wonderful. So you book an actual safari. It's then that you learn that an actual safari, you know, like in Africa and everything, is mostly getting up at dawn to spend 6 hours being bounced on your cockinks in the back of a jeep, swallowing mouthfuls of dust, whilst being snacked upon by squadrons of mosquitoes, and all for the chance to catch a glimpse of one solitary giraffe sleeping under a tree. Now, does that giraffe sing or dance? Does it, heck. The circle of life, shove that where the sun doesn't shine, Elton. You decide that maybe you like the artificial sanitized version of safaris better than the real thing. This, I think, is a pretty good summary of most people's experience with the British. Britain, the brand, the idea, the myth, the theme park experience, wonderful. It's a joyous pop culture roller coaster through history. There's the Mini, there's James Bond, there's the swinging 60s in London, there's Monty Python, there's Paddington Bear, there's dancing to the Rolling Stones, there's Harry Potter reading marathons, there's summers of Wimbledon from a distance. It's wonderful, huh? But then you visited us, didn't you? Yeah, you made that mistake. Don't worry, it's okay to talk about it. You're amongst friends here. It wasn't as good as you hoped, was it? People weren't as polite, were they? There were fewer castles, huh? You didn't meet Harry Potter or Doctor Who. It was all a bit small and a bit pokey and a bit expensive, wasn't it? You didn't have a bad time or anything. It was fine, it was nice, perfectly pleasant even. You just couldn't help but conclude, as with safaris, maybe you like the idea of Britishness just a little bit more than the kind of execution of it. Thank you for being honest about that. Now, if that's how you feel about us, imagine how it feels to be us. Not all nationalities work their citizens equally. Some exert higher demands. Yeah? So Italians, they get to be free-feeling, free-speaking, free-gesticulating, passionate communicators. Mexicans, well, they get to sleep all afternoon, wear big sombreros and drink tequila. Germans, you're expected to be humorless, uptight, and yet good with a screwdriver. Make one joke a week and you're the office comedian. Arrive 10 minutes late for a business meeting and you're a social renegade. Park against a Gehweg and you're practically Che Guevara. Not so for us Brits. Because pop culture is not only your first experience with us, your Brit safari. It's our first experience of ourselves too. In school, at home, on TV, the music coming from our radios, the whitewash empire of our history books, the self-righteous tone of our newspapers. We're indoctrinated, just as you're indoctrinated, with the idea of Britishness. More than that, perhaps, a kind of ideal of Britishness. We're taught that we're something special. We're the direct descendants of the most successful empire of all time, after all. The occupiers of the dead center of the world map, creators of the planet's lingua franca, birthplace of Shakespeare, and the Beatles, yes, those Beatles, all 4 of them, We're colossal, hit it out of the park, cultural overachievers. We've sold our cultural mythology hard, and no one bought more of it than we did. And this is where almost all of our problems begin. Because of it, we feel a pressure to always be funny, to speak perfect Oxford English, to remain stiff upper-lipped in adversity, to say sorry at even the slightest of provocations, to not be a burden, a bother, or an inconvenience, to be self-reliant, to understand the British. You have to understand how much we're struggling with this disconnect between the kind of values of our don't make a fuss culture and the kind of needs of us as individuals, between the ideal of Britishness over here and the kind of execution of Britishness here, of everyday life on a small, overcrowded, damp collection of islands, now rather showing their age and perhaps, dare I say it, a little past their cultural and economic prime. It's all a bit overwhelming and intimidating and mostly impossible. So just cut us a little slack, will you? Hopefully in time, we'll learn to do just the same.